Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us wherever you are listening from and whatever platform you are listening on. I'm very excited to bring this topic to you guys today because we're going to be talking about players playing at some of the highest levels there are, as well as coaches kind of coaching at some of the highest levels there are, and that is at the national level. So I'm looking forward personally, and I hope that those of you listening are looking forward to learning about coaching players at that level, as well as how teenagers specifically are able to balance the expectations that are put on them at such a high level with all the other responsibilities and all the other things that come with being a teenager and growing up as well. So to help bring their expertise in this topic, I'm very fortunate to be joined by player, teacher, coach, at the national level, and there may be other titles she has as well, over in the Netherlands, Coach Lisa van den Adel. Coach, how are you today?
Good, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and I want to go ahead and get started, Coach, with your journey, with your basketball journey, where it's taking you as a player, where it's taking you as a coach, and where you're currently at right now.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. I am really thrilled to be on the podcast to start with. My name's Lisa. I'm 31. I'm from the Netherlands. It's a really small country in Europe, about 17 million people living here. I am playing for a club because in Europe it's very common to play for clubs and not really for schools. And I've been playing 22 years right now, and the last 13 years I've been on the first team, and our first team is playing on the highest level possible in Holland. I've won national championship, I've won some cups. Also in the under 20, I've won national championship twice, and next season I'm going to be playing my 14th season for the same club. Like 13 years ago, I really fell in love with coaching. I started to coach second teams, boys and girls, very low level, regional, but I found out very quickly that I was really in love with it. So for the last couple years, I've been coaching on a higher level. I got my coaching degree, the highest degree there is in the Netherlands, and I wrote a 5-year plan for the girls I was starting with at the time, and next season is going to be the 5th year, so we'll see if all the goals are going to be checked off. Mm-hmm. And besides from all that, I'm a teacher because there's no way to be a professional women's coach in the Netherlands full-time or player. So during the day I'm a teacher, and in the evenings and weekends this is my second and third job. So yeah, that's me.
So yeah, keeping busy for sure. Definitely have so many different hats that you wear, from going from teaching, from going to a player, and going to being a coach, and juggling all 3 of those. And I know that one of the things that will be mentioned is about the players balancing that, but I want to talk about you first. How are you able to balance all of those responsibilities? How has the way that you worked maybe changed? Because I know that we have a lot of coaches who are, you know, they're teachers, they're coaches, or they work another job, and then they have family responsibilities. So how has the way that you work changed? Do you feel like you're more efficient now with everything? How do you kind of balance all of those different responsibilities?
Well, I think I learned at a very early age. I was like 12 or 13, and I wanted to be the best player I could be. So I was practicing every evening, also with a couple of teams in a row on one evening. And I just found out very quickly that you have to be super disciplined, and I'm a very structured person, so that's a good combination, I think. But my life ever since I was 16 or 17 has been like this. I come home from either school or work, I make dinner, I take a little nap, I go to the gym, I coach, I practice, I go home, I sleep. That's like my everyday routine. And I think because I'm so used to that routine, and I'm a very busy person, I like to be busy with things, it just suits me very well. but I learned to be more efficient the last couple of years, also having my own household here. And I do a lot of planning for dinner. So on Sunday, I make sure I cook something that I can eat 3 or 4 days that week. So put stuff in the freezer or the fridge, and that's mainly what I can do to make my life slightly less stressful. But it's just the way my life is built, and I cannot see it any other way, actually.
Yeah, so it sounds like to me that there's a lot of structure involved. There's a lot of planning and there's a lot of like scheduling involved where you're gonna go from one thing, then do this, and there's kind of a routine that's built in.
Yeah.
So that way there's really not many surprises. You know what time is being allocated for what, and then when that's done, you put away that and then you just move
Yeah,
on to what you have to do next, right?
exactly. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense, and I know that I've had conversations with coaches and thought about that myself. Is that you have your time when you're focusing on your teaching, but when that's done, you have to kind of put that away, and then you got to focus on the next thing. And then if you have other personal responsibilities, to make sure that you take care of those. And I know that a lot of coaches and a lot of even teachers kind of struggle with not taking work home with them if they can, and making sure that they're being a family person and everything like that if they need to. So
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right about making sure that you have structure and you have time built in so that you're giving the appropriate amount of time for everything.
I think also my friends and family, they're very understanding of what I do, and if I cannot be at someone's birthday party, then they don't make a problem out of it at all. That's it's very they're very supporting in what I do. So I'm not expected to be any more of a friend than I am, and I'm the best friend I can be in the limited time I have.
Well, that,
Yeah,
well, that's a great
that's
point that you mentioned too, especially maybe for younger coaches or newer coaches, that they might need to have those conversations with those people in their lives by saying like, "Hey, I'm doing this job and it's going to take a lot more time than maybe you might think it will, but I'm
yeah,
going to be a lot busier than you might expect. But I'm going to do the best I can to, like you said, be a
yeah.
friend or whatever the case may be." So yeah, makes a lot of
Also,
sense.
my employer is very positive about it all. They're very supportive. If I cannot address a meeting because I have a game, let's say 5 hours away or 2.5 hours away, and then there's no problem at all. They're very supportive of everything I do. So that's really nice. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Is that for those coaches who are looking at those jobs, maybe it's even a new job that they're going to take. Excuse me, to understand if your life as a coach is going to be really busy, that you're going to want to work under somebody or work for somebody who's understanding of that, who's maybe a little bit flexible and can accommodate you if you have those things going on. So yeah, I think all of those are definitely really good things to keep in mind. So
Yeah,
you mentioned, and we talked a little bit off air about your coaching experience working with individuals who are U12 all the way up to U18. So
yeah,
I'm curious about the progression, about the skills and abilities that are needed for players as they move up and they get older, because I can imagine that things at the national level, they're kind of building on itself. And so there's an expectation of where a player is at one level, where they need to be when they get a little older, a little older, and a little older. So can you
yeah.
expand on that?
Yeah, when I started with my girls, they were under 12, and I really feel in under 12, it's really important that kids are, first of all, having fun, because that's going to keep you excited for basketball forever. But it's really important to be able to be dribbling left and right handed, making a layup left and right handed, having a good shot technique. Like all those basic things are for me under 12. But as soon as you feel like your group is mastering a skill, or most of your group is mastering a skill, you need to move on right away. So I have a coach Instagram. It's really funny when I scroll all the way back to when they were under 12, and I see what kind of layups we did and what we do now. You can see the progress in it. So after that, you start with like going underneath the basket, or one step layups, rocket step things, and then this year I'm really working on Euro step layups and finishing with the wrong hand and wrong foot, like so finishing off balance. And same with shooting. In under 12, we were just very stationary, making sure the hand was pointing towards the basket. And then in under 14, we did jump stop and 1-2 stop. And right now in under 18, I'm working with like pull ups, step backs. So all the skills, every time you think like, okay, we got this, we can go a step further. Also, I really think it's important that up till under 16, like up to they're 16 years old, they need to be able to do everything. So we're not really specializing before that, position wise. But next year, when they're going to go under 18, some of the girls are not growing anymore and they stay small. So we can really make them shooters or dribblers, and then girls who are still really growing, we can let them do other stuff. So specializing is something from under 18 and up is what we like to do in our club. And like also tactical stuff. When we were first year under 14, I really like to address like what can we do 2-on-0? Like what are all the options we have? We can pass and cut, or we can dribble into a handoff, or we can put someone in the post, pass and then cut. And then now what I do is like 3-on-0, 4-on-0, 5-on-0, like up to a whole offense. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's really the build up I do. I do everything from small to big concepts. And in under 14, I never ever did an offense 5-on-0. No. I just put out 2-on-0, max 3-on-0. So they get to understand small concept, and then in a few years we can put it all together to bigger concepts and bigger understanding of team basketball.
Right. That makes a lot of sense to kind of start on the smaller piece and then see like how it builds on itself, kind of like with their skill development, how certain things that they do at a younger age kind of build up to these more advanced or more developed skills. It's kind of the same way in a team sense as well. And so I think that's great that you're able to kind of start with you're able to start with that U12 and then work your way up to working with the U18 and kind of see that progression. And so for coaches who may be in a similar situation where they're starting with a really young group and they're going to be with that group for a really long time, are there certain things in terms of teaching skill development that those coaches might want to be aware of that maybe will take a lot longer than they think? Was there anything that surprised you that you're like, oh, like this took a lot longer than I anticipated, and maybe there was things that like they picked up on and with your particular group a lot quicker?
I think the hardest thing and also the most important thing is in basketball is read whatever you get from the defense. And I thought that would come a little sooner than it really does. It's really hard for kids to see like what is my defender doing and what should I take? What is my advantage right now? And when you play a game, for instance, in school, you play at tag, that's the right word, right? Then it's very common sense, like how to not be tagged by the person who's the tagger. But then when we practice a screen, for instance, when we practice a pin down, then it's very hard for them to understand that when your defender goes underneath the screen and you go over the screen, you meet them again. I'm like, when you play tag, you don't do this. Like you read the screen, your defender is going underneath, so you step out for the shot. And it was weird, not weird, but I had to adapt to it that sometimes it's so logical and it's just not in their minds yet. And especially with reading the defense, that's something that took a lot longer than I thought it was gonna take.
Well, that makes me think of a follow-up question then for your particular case. And I know that there's coaches who still might have this, where there's coaches who have such a wealth of experience because maybe they played at a higher level and they see things differently, and you're currently playing. So is that something that you've been able to adjust to, or is that something you have to keep in mind? Is that the way that you kind of look at the game as somebody who's still playing it? you have to kind of stop and remember like what it's like for somebody kind of at a younger level? Is
Yeah.
that something you kind of balance as well?
Yeah, that's totally what you say. Is because you're a player yourself, you're like, oh, this is so logical. Why do you not see it? So sometimes you have to just go 10 steps back. And my main question is not like my main question, or what I tell them in the practice is not what they should do, but I always ask them like, what did you see? What did the defender do? Like what is your advantage right now? So I try to make them see instead of filling in the answer for them. But that's what I learned in the last couple of years. It's what I did in the beginning. I told them like, you should do this or you should do this, and now I'm way more letting themselves explore what is the best option. But that's something I learned through the process.
Well, I think I think that's really common, because I think sometimes maybe we as coaches kind of just think, well, it is easier just to like tell them what
Hmm.
to do, but there's
Yeah.
definitely more of a benefit for them to be able to think it and be able to explain it to you, because as you could probably talk about, sometimes you're going to get some very interesting answers if you ask
Yeah.
your players
Yeah.
questions, and then you'd be like, oh, is that what you think? Is that how you're seeing things?
Also, sometimes the thing you're thinking as a coach is not the only thing that's possible. And if you let the girls answer, then you get very creative thoughts sometimes. And I want to let that creativity be there, because I think it's really important for players to be creative and be able to make their own solutions. And sometimes it's not my solution, but it's a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. And so one of the things that you mentioned is we talked about the skill progression is about, things building on itself and starting with the smaller pieces, then kind of building up with the bigger pieces. So something I'm curious about with the girls that you started with the U12 was with shooting, because as we know that they're not developed yet physically. And so there's certain limitations to what they can do with shooting, because if they try to shoot too far, their form is going to be completely off.
Hmm.
So how is that progression with getting girls developing with shooting, but at the same time with respect to the fact that they're still growing and making sure that they're able to shoot properly?
Yeah, I never practice shots that are unrealistic for their ability at that moment. So, for example, in under 12, I always shot around the paint. We did shot exercises sometimes with the bench. So they would stand on the bench, and when the passer would pass, they would come down, catch in the air, 2 feet down, and then up. But it would always be the distance that their technique would allow. And some of my girls will be further in their development, so they will go to a different basket, and we would put the bench a little further, or I would divide the groups in two and give some girls a more developed exercise than the other group. And I would explain it to them like it's not a punishment, or it's not a bad thing if you're still like practicing that, but we want to get it right. And then I don't think we really shot three-pointers till 1.5, 2 seasons ago. And I was just explaining to them it's really bad to practice something that's gonna mess up your shot for what? It's LeBron James didn't start off with mid-court shots. He started off close to the basket. So you have to work your way up there.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% agree, because if they try to shoot a shot that's outside of their range, they're not going to be able to do it with any proper form at all. And then, like you said, it's
No.
going to mess up their form. And
Yeah.
so that there's going to be some issues that way. And so one of the things you mentioned too was about how you differentiate where some girls are ready to be at one level while some are at the other. And so
Yeah.
I imagine, um, at the level that you're coaching at with the players that you have, is that sometimes these players may feel a lot of pressure to progress to a certain level like quickly. They might either put this pressure on themselves, or they might feel that this pressure from elsewhere. So I'm just curious about how you're able to manage that with your girls, to where they're not feeling like so much pressure to be perfect, and being able to just progress the way that they need to.
Okay, well, one thing I really like to do is talk to my girls a couple of times a year individually and talk about what they're good at and what they need to work on, and um, just making sure they feel good being where they are. And sometimes the outcome will be that someone really feels a lot of pressure, and then I try to tell them, like, everybody makes mistakes. There's no one that's perfect, and it's all learning, and you never get subbed if you do something wrong. Like, everyone makes mistakes. So I really try to take the pressure off in personal conversations with them, and also in practice, I always tell them it's practice, and it's practice for a main reason. You gotta practice stuff, and when you practice stuff, things go wrong.
Hmm. Yeah.
And when we're in the game, I think I put pressure on two levels. One thing is things we are practicing for a couple years, they should be known, and you should be able to do it. And um, that's expected of you. And then there is the second thing, and it's things we recently started practicing. And I'm not asking you to be perfect, I'm asking you to be focused and coachable. So for instance, ball side, help side, like very basic thing. I expect you to do it. So if you don't do it, then you might have a problem with me in the game. But if we do a certain type of rotation that we just started practicing, I'm really trying to help you through it and coach you through it from the bench. And then your job is to be listening and be focused. And then, yes, stuff goes wrong all the time. I don't mind. They know they can make mistakes, but you got to make up for it. If you lose the ball, you're the first one back. So those kind of things they know.
Mhm.
And yeah, being at the highest level is a lot of pressure, especially for the girls who are like just below the level, because they feel like they cannot make any mistakes.
Mm.
But we also have second teams in our club. So some of these girls are also playing with the second team, where they can feel a little less pressure and just play more freely. And yeah, that's how we try to balance that out.
Well, something that you mentioned that really stuck with me was that sometimes some of these players, if they're at that level below, they feel that they need to be perfect and they're going to try not to make any mistakes. But I feel like if you try to play that way, you're going to think way too much, and you'll probably end up making a lot more mistakes because you're just
Yeah,
too putting way too much pressure on yourself. And like you said, we're all gonna miss shots, and we're all gonna have mistakes that we make, and that's just part of it. And so
yeah,
having that culture, I think, is really important, that it's okay to make a mistake, and that sometimes you'll make a mistake trying to do the right thing and it just didn't work out, and that it's okay. And so
what I try to do is I try to give them, I try to ask them, like, so what are you good at? What can we expect from you this game? So that's what your focus needs to be on. Like, if you're not a very good ball handler, but you're a very good rebounder, then that's what I expect you to do. And I won't sub you if you lose the ball. I know that's not your best point. I expect you to be in the rebound every time.
mhm.
And a thing that really that I got from the teacher environment is I don't know if you know Carol Dweck.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, her growth mindset is really something I love, and I try to talk about that a lot in practice and off practice. That's something I try to implement on my girls. Having a growth mindset is so important, not only for basketball, but just for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're 100% agree. And if anyone listening doesn't know about growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and what that looks like, I'd highly recommend looking into that, and researching that, because I think a growth mindset is just such a positive mindset, especially when it comes to, like you said, with making mistakes, and all of those things are just learning opportunities and opportunities for
Mhm.
growth, hence the term growth
Yeah.
mindset. 100% agree. And so, uh, perhaps I should have started with this, but it's okay. And so at the national level, and as they're playing at these higher levels, I'm curious about, by the time they get to you, and as they're playing with you, how many different potentially, how many different clubs and coaches and trainers have some of your girls had? I'm curious as to how much they've been learning and taking in, and just how many different ideas and different coaches and different experiences that they have by the time they get to you.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine it's a lot when they hear, one coach says one thing, this trainer says one thing, and they have to kind of adapt and be able to balance all of these different things that they're hearing.
Yeah. Since we're a very small country, people are used to not driving very far. So every other city or town has a basketball club. So most of the girls, when they're under 12 or under 14, they've never seen a different club than their own. Some girls have, when you live in a very small town and your basketball club is very low level and your parents see that you're slightly talented, they'll look for a different club in the region, mostly within like 30 or 45 minutes drive. In under 10, under 12, it's very common to have a volunteer as a coach, and one parent is not the other. The one has basketball experience, the other one is just a very nice volunteer trying to make girls have fun. So it varies very much. I would say in Holland it's also common when you're 18 you just have one club, but it's certainly common that every two years you have a different coach. So most of my girls, because they had me for the last 5 years, they only had me and the one who coached before me, which was the dad of one of the girls. But there are also girls who are on their second or third team right now. But as like I'm really concerned with their future in basketball, and I feel like if they want to be successful, they have to be able to play for a lot of different coaches, and they're gonna play for a lot of different coaches, because I want my girls to go off to college in 2 or 3 years. Like when they finish high school, I want them to go to the States and be able to play there, or play here at the highest national level in under 20 or in a first team. So yeah, I would say it varies much between 2 to 16 coaches that you can have from your 10 to 18 years old.
So I'm curious then about something that you mentioned, a comment that you just made about a concern that you had about your players needing to have different coaches and needing to kind of have that exposure. Is that a concern that you have with the fact that you've been with this group for so long that some of them have only kind of been used to your coaching and your style? Is that something that you're thinking about?
Well, on one hand, yes, because I think I compare it with languages. Like, it's a very good thing for your resume or for your work career or personal life if you speak multiple languages. So it'll be very good for you if you know that basketball has many philosophies, and if you know a lot of those philosophies, because basketball is not just one thing. Like, my thing is not the right thing, your thing is not the right thing. There are more right ways. And because I'm aware of that, I think that I'm doing the best I can to show them a lot of different kind of offenses, defenses, possibilities on the court. And I hope that makes them very, what's the English word for that?
Well,
Very useful in multiple.
Yeah, they can adapt to a lot of different things.
Yeah. Because for example, there is a club in Holland. It's a very good club. They have a very good girls program, but they all play from the first team all the way down to their under 14. They play the same offense. So the girls in under 20, they run this offense perfectly. But it's the only thing they know. It's the only language they speak. So if they want to go to college, or if they want to play for the national team, or if they ever get a club somewhere else in Europe, is that one language going to bring them whatever they need? That's what I'm trying to think about, and that's what I do on the court. So I don't really run one kind of offense. I try to teach them everything there's to know about basketball, all types of screens, all types of reads, and then their basketball IQ is hopefully getting at the level that they can play wherever they want.
Yeah, I think that that makes a lot of sense because your goal is to have them move on to continue with their career, and like you said, with some going to the States or some going to different clubs. And so, as you mentioned, you're very intentional with your planning to make sure that you do that. And
Yeah.
so I think that um one of the things then to consider for coaches who may be coaching younger levels or coaching in similar situations to you is that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that sometimes you have to maybe sacrifice things in the moment, like sacrifice winning essentially, because they need to get uncomfortable and they need to be doing these different things. Even if they're not going to be successful in that game, they're going to learn something that's going to be useful to them in the
Yeah.
future. Am I correct in
Yeah,
thinking that?
you're so right. Yeah, and it's really hard because everyone can say, "Oh, I'm just here for development," but everyone likes to win. Everyone likes the feeling in a game to win, and sometimes you just gotta let it go.
Hmm.
As well as in a practice that, let's say you're playing 5-on-5 and things are not going the way you planned it to be, then sometimes you have to let it be their learning moment and they have to figure it out, because that's where they get creative and that's where their own minds are going to think for them and not my mind that's going to think for them. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think you're totally right. You have to sacrifice some things, but you get a lot in return.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% agree. And so are there things that you do with your team in terms of things that you maybe have them learn about offense and defense that you don't see like other teams around you do? Are there certain things that they're getting exposure to that you think that maybe they wouldn't if they were elsewhere?
I think there's a couple of really great clubs in Holland that have the same philosophy as I do. So I
Hmm.
won't say I'm the one and only coach that has it right. No, no, no way. But
Right.
what I try is to not like get them stuck in one idea. So I do down screens, back screens, stagger screens. This year, doing flare screens for the first time, and I haven't seen a lot of different other teams do flare screens, but to be honest, I really don't pay that much attention to the other teams because I'm
Hmm.
really focusing on my girls and the stage that they're in and what I'm trying to teach them. So I know there's been a lot of ball screen offenses in the league in Holland, and for sure my girls are doing that too. But I just hope that all the other things I do will give them an advantage in the end.
Yeah, and just being able to be adaptable and being able to just know what these things are, so that if they go to another coach and the coach mentions like something about a flare screen, they'll be like, oh, okay, like I've done
Yeah,
that
they know
before.
how to execute and most important, read the screen. Also with the national team, because my girls are some of them got invited last year to practice with the national team for the first time. It was like under 14, under 15 selections, and there's like 40 or 50 girls coming in. And when they're gonna make a selection, like a final 12 or 15, I just want their coach to be like, wait, that girl and that girl, we can use them because they know what to do and they know basketball and they can read the things we're trying to play.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's the big balance between teaching players how to play versus just teaching them plays. Because if they know how to play, then they can be able to maneuver and be able to understand what's
Yeah.
going on in the game. Because like you mentioned, it's very important for you and your coaching philosophy that the players can read the floor and they can read what's happening, and they can be able to know not just what to do, but also why they're doing it. And I think
Yeah.
that that's such a huge advantage. Absolutely. So I'm curious about the fact that because you're coaching girls at such a high level, and a lot of these girls, if not all of them, have either hopes or maybe sometimes expectations put on them to be moving on and playing elsewhere later on. How how is the process of kind of creating a team in which they all support each other and they all want the best for each other, while at the same time a lot of them individually want to be successful so that they can go on and continue their career? How are you able to kind of balance that team versus individual mindset?
Well, I think one of the most important things I did in under 12 was there was a rule I made, and that was when you get an assist, you give a high five. So I put a lot of value. Also, I talked about the value of assists a lot in practices, but I put so much value to giving an assist that that became fun for them really fast. And also in my practices, I do a lot of drills where counting points is different than counting points in the real game. And a lot of times an assist is +1. So they always know that when they're a team player, it's been seen by everyone.
Hmm.
And I think that is the start of them having fun in being a team and giving each other assists, and that was the start of having fun as a team altogether. I think there is, of course, girls in the team that go for individual success, but I also want them to, because it's their quality. And I will always let them know if their option was the right option to go by yourself, or that someone else was more open, because they need to learn how to do both. I never tell people that are very creative in one-on-one to not do it, because I think that creativity is worth so much in international basketball. But I also want everyone to know that assist is the most beautiful thing about basketball, in my opinion. But yeah,
Well,
that's
yeah.
why it's a team sport.
No, I think that's great in that they get just as much joy out of somebody else scoring as they would
Yes,
themselves, if
yeah.
not more joy in that. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And so that brings up, um, I think, an interesting thing then for you to balance, because you have to kind of balance and strategize and think about not only the team success and teaching the game to your players, but also you have to put certain players in particular in situations to make them shine and to make them do really well. Is that
Yeah.
something that you kind of are keeping in your mind, that okay, this girl has a lot of potential to do this, so I need to, or I'm thinking about putting her in these certain situations so that she looks the best?
Yeah, yeah, I totally do. And for instance, last year we had a really good, fast point guard, and she was great, like speeding up on the dribble and then driving into the paint. And occasionally I would create an offense where everyone's out and she either goes or gets a ball screen and then goes. I have a girl who has been great at posting up, so I do create a setting where she can do that. But mainly I ask them, like, what are you good at, and what is your advantage? Like, who has the advantage on the court? If my 5 is having a mismatch, then she should get the ball. Or if my point guard is defended by a slow defender, she should drive. So we're trying also to find the right people and make themselves shine, because the situation is there.
Mm.
I'm not trying to force, but I'm trying to create a situation where they see it themselves and then go.
And is that a conversation then that you're having with those girls, where you ask them like what is going to put you in the best
Yeah.
light, and are they aware that, hey, in these certain situations that we're putting in, like this is for you and like this is your opportunity to, I guess, be a little bit more selfish?
Yeah. Yeah, we really try to discuss that a lot in practice. Like, what I'll stop the game and I'll ask, like, what is the best option here? Look around, who's defended by who, or where's the most space? Like, what is the best option right now? And I really try to let them figure it out by themselves. But that's the main thing why I stop why I stopped the 5-on-5 if we do it in practice, or 3-on-3 or whatever, but why I stopped the practice. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense, because then you are getting them still to think about what's happening on the court, what's the best decision to make right now, why would you make that decision, and then it gets them thinking about it. And I think that's really important to like we've talked about quite a couple of times here, is asking them what they're
Yeah.
doing, why they're thinking the way that they are, and like you said, they'll surprise you, and sometimes they'll come up with something that you never thought of that was actually a good
Yeah.
idea. Right?
You
Absolutely.
know what the most fun is at that point in practice, when they're like, well, I'm going this side because I see her and I want her to post up right now. And I'm like, that's where I'm so happy, because they are not only reading their own spot on the court, but they're reading the whole court, and they see someone else being in a great position. And that's also where the team play is
Yeah.
shining through.
Right. No, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they're seeing things to put other people in a really good position, and they're like, oh, I want to do this because then this girl can do this, or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. So I I'm curious then, because you talked about girls moving on, and some, like you said, like going to the States, or some going elsewhere. Um, because Holland is relatively small, these girls are potentially going to be going into completely new, completely foreign environments. Is
Mhm.
that something that you, in a sense, for those particular players, almost kind of have to like get them ready for? Because I can imagine it's quite the transition for those who like, okay, I want to go play in the States. Well, it's a lot different, just in so many different levels from there to over there in Holland. So is
Yeah.
there a transition? Is there a way that makes it easy for them, for anyone who has those aspirations?
Oh, well, I don't think it will ever be easy, because they all go
Right.
from living with their parents and their breakfast being made to living all on your own on a different continent and stuff. So I don't think it will be easy for
Right.
anyone. I do think the girls that are going abroad, because we have quite a few that actually play in the States right now or play elsewhere in Europe.
Hmm.
I do think they're extremely hungry for it, for the ambition, and that's the start. And because we have a lot of girls that already had the experience, they can talk to them about what it's going to be like. For instance, my sister, she plays at Colorado State, and we have a couple of other players who played college D1 in the States. So they come in and talk to the girls like, it's going to be like this, and you got to make sure that you're on time, or you have to have your stuff ready for school. Or so we have a lot of help in that aspect. But yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine so many levels that it's different. And so it's fun though, because we talked about being adaptable, and being able to, on a basketball sense, being able to adapt and be able to do different things, and that probably helps with a little bit, at least, being able to adapt and go into a different situation as well. And so
Yeah.
that also made me think then about girls that you've had, or know, that went D1 and went to the States. In terms of basketball on court skills, what sort of things did all of those girls have in common that they were able to do? Are there conversations that you can even have with your current girls, where you're going to tell them, hey, if you want to go play at this level, these are the things you absolutely have to make sure that you're doing well? Has there been anything kind of consistent with that you've noticed?
Yeah, well, we have a conversation about like pure yeah, basketball wise things they have to do. For instance, if I have a girl that will always drive right and never finish with her left, I will tell her, like, if you ever want to make it to the first team and you can only make a right layup, then that's the end of it. Like, you have to be able to finish with your left hand. But I think to succeed at that level, their talent's not enough. You got to work your ass off. You got to be coachable. You got to be on time. You got to have your shit together. Like, it's no joke. And Yeah, we have that conversation. We have that conversation with them apart from the basketball stuff only, also about like their work ethic. You can be the talented person on the court, most talented person on the court, but if you don't work hard, if you're not willing to work hard, if you're not coachable, then you're never going to make it.
Mm.
I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and have you noticed with that, because you've been working with this current group, the U12s all the way up to where they're at now, have there kind of been these like ups and downs in terms of them being on time or work ethic? Are there certain like things that you have to kind of talk to your girls and say like, hey, you were here and then you went down here and you need to get up here? Is that like a constant like type of conversation that happens?
With most girls, no.
Good.
Everyone knows my rules, and they've been the same for the last 4 years. So they know what's expected of them. And in the beginning of every new season, I always have a get together also with the parents. I do a presentation about the season and what to expect, and also the rules. And I rarely have to address my girls on not following those. So I'm very lucky with that.
Mm.
But that's also one of the main like it's mandatory. If you want to play on my team, then this is what you have to do.
Right.
Otherwise, you don't have to come.
And I think one of the benefits that you have with having people who can come back is they can kind of speak to what it actually means to work hard and what working hard actually looks like. Because I know a lot
Yeah,
of coaches who will talk to their players and say like, hey, you think you're working hard and you may be working harder than anyone on this team, but compared to like where you need to get to, like you're not working hard at all. And so
yeah,
I think that's
that's a
really
very
helpful.
good point. Yeah, that's a very good point because I think it was my sister actually who also mentioned that. Someone mentioned that to me not too long ago. Yeah, if you always have to set the bar way higher than even what you think right now. Like if you think that you're doing good, then you can always do better. Especially when you want to go to the States or want to play in a EuroLeague team or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I, we need, I think, those role models, or we need those people to come and talk to our girls and our guys, because I think it's one thing for us as a coach to say it, but when they hear it from somebody else who was like, hey, I was where you were and this is what I had to do to get there, then
Yeah.
hopefully, that will resonate with them and be like, oh, okay, I'm not working maybe as hard as I thought I was, and things like that. And so, yeah.
Yeah. You're
Um,
right.
so with all of that, with all of the the work ethic and how hard they have to work, and all of the different things that they're going to need if they want to continue playing and they want to move on, um, what sort of level of pressure do you feel that these girls are on? And you can speak to it too as well from your own experience with this, and how can maybe parents and coaches kind of balance the fact that there's a lot of pressure and these girls want to be really successful, but they're still kids and they're still growing up and they're still going to go through their own personal development?
I think this also goes with the growth mindset a lot because what you want to do as a parent is I feel like you want to give your kids responsibilities. It's their responsibility to pack their bags and be on time and be ready to go to practice or whenever. And on the other hand, you want to coach them in success experiences, but also in failing. And they gotta feel that failing is not a bad thing. Failing is learning, and I think parents are really, really important in that aspect. Um, because I only see them so many hours on the court, and the parents can be like my backup. And when a kid goes home and it didn't have a good game, like when I notice it after the game, I'll talk to the kid. But parents also see the kid like really opening up about it. And I think if they're able to coach their kids well, like first of all, don't always say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Next time you're gonna do better." Or, "Oh, you played so good. I don't know why the coach didn't play more." I think they need to coach their kids that it's going to be hard sometimes, but also there's always room for growth. And if you keep trying, then there's going to be a day that you master it. And yeah, that is, I think, the way to deal with the pressure the best.
That's a good point. Again, going back to the growth mindset, is that there's going to be difficulties, there are going to be struggles, and I think it's kind of the way that we all respond to it. And I know that some coaches are excellent at that, and they're very, very good at helping their players understand that it's fine to make mistakes, but we have to learn from them and we have to grow from them, and like let's
Yeah.
like keep on moving forward and doing the best that we can. And then also, with all of these things of basketball that they're going through, how much importance do you and your club and put on grades and schoolwork? How important is that for the girls on your team to make sure that they're being successful in school?
Well, not at all.
Mm.
That maybe sound weird because in the States it's so related, and
Hmm.
I know in college you can't play if your grades aren't good, but we are totally independent from school.
Right.
What I do have personally, that's my choice though. I have a talk with the parents in the beginning of the season, and also with the girls that they cannot come to practice if they do really bad in school. But it's the parents that are really the link between me and the kids right there, because they have to monitor that. But I think it's the kids' responsibility to plan their homework. So make sure you do it on the days you're off from practice and on a Sunday when you don't have a game, because I expect you in practice. Like I was practicing 7 evenings a week, or 7 practices during the week, and I still managed to do school. So it's you're able to do that. You just gotta plan well. But then, yeah, if you're not doing well in school, then parents are calling me and telling me, and I will make agreements with the girls how we go about it.
Right.
So yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
well, I think that that's really important, that even if your team, for any coach listening, even if your team doesn't necessarily have an expectation for what grades are, like if it matters to you personally as a coach, you can still have like expectations put in place if it's something that is important to you, kind of like how some other things about, whether it's when you're on time or this, that, or the other, like things that are important to you as a coach, like you need to emphasize those. And so if grades are one of
yeah.
them, and I think, like you
Also
said,
behavior.
what about
If they behave, let's say
Mhm.
there's a kid who behaves not well in class and is rude to teachers and stuff, and I find out, because I'm a teacher, I know a lot of things. If I find out, then we really have a conversation, because that's not how my girls are going to be looked at. They should be looked at as professional athletes in the making, and your behavior is like your image. It's really important to go with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's surprising in some sense. The majority of the girls who I've worked with are really respectful and treat their teachers and other adults really well. But I do know of a couple situations of players who super respectful and super nice to their coach, but then they don't treat their teachers the same way. And I'm like, with you, if I find out about that, that's a really big problem. And I don't know how much this affects you personally with your experience of girls who want to play in the next level, but if you have girls who like have those aspirations and they want to keep playing, but they have like these attitude problems, or they're having like behavioral problems with other adults, like that might be something that just might bother a coach or bother you personally, and
Oh
might
yeah.
not, you might not, I'm not going to say you don't support him as much, but there's going to definitely be some concerns I can imagine that you would have about them, and maybe their maturity of even being able to go play at like a different level or to even a different continent if they're having those sort of problems.
Yeah, I must say I don't have it a lot, but I
Hmm.
I know that when I do hear of it, I will talk to you about it, and I expect you to be a respectful professional.
Yeah.
That's what we all want to be.
Yeah, absolutely, and I completely agree. So many of the players I've coached are great, and usually it just takes a conversation with them, and we're good. But it just goes back to the whole point of what we emphasize as being important, like you said, about not just how well they play and how hard they work, but their grades and the way that they treat others. And like you said, we're coaching and creating professionals, and so there's a lot that goes into being a professional, so much more than just the way that you can play on the court.
Yeah, agree.
So to wrap up, there's a couple things that I'd like to do. And so the first question I'll ask as we wrap up is, what is a coaching moment of yours that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
It's not really a moment. It's more a realization that a plan is helping you really to get where you want to be, to achieve your goals. And because of my coaching diploma, my coaching degree, I had to write a 5-year plan. It doesn't have to be a 5-year plan, but if you think about where you want to be in the end and you go back step by step to where you start, then you have such a clear image of what you want to do every year or every month or every 2 weeks. And it will make you develop so much faster because you just know where you're going and you know why you do different things. So I would say make plans is one of the things I learned that I think everyone should do.
Well, it kind of goes into your life philosophy of structure and plan and scheduling and
Right. That is true. Yeah.
well, it's having a vision. I think that's is really important, though, is that to have like a vision and have a plan for yourself. And I think you do this as well, is just kind of know where you want to go and like where you want to be, because sometimes if you don't have that plan or you don't have that vision, years go by and then maybe you haven't necessarily made the progress you wanted because you never kind of laid out that plan and never had that plan written out
Yeah.
somewhere. So yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. And so to wrap up, Coach, I give every guest what I call a 60-second soapbox, where they can just get out their final thought, their closing thought, something that they really want to make sure that our coach is here as kind of a final thought. So, Coach, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor.
Ooh, 60 seconds. Let's go.
If it goes more, that's okay too.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I wrote 3 things down that I do and that might be very helpful for other people. So I'm just gonna put them here and use them if you want to. The first thing I do is on the start of practice, I put 5 girls on the floor and I show them what we're gonna work towards. And I'm gonna show them the whole idea. So I do a top-down thing, actually, if you look at it like that. And then I'll be like, so today we're going to practice this part and we're going to practice that kind of shot. And this is what it comes into in the end. So that's because I like them to have a whole, the whole image in mind. That's one that might be helpful. Then the second one, we live in a small country here. I don't know how it is with other coaches, but we have very limited gym time. And I think if you have baskets available, every girl should have a ball in their hands and be busy with a basketball. I don't like to waste my time on running without a ball or stuff like that. I use every single second, if I have a basket available, to be able to do basketball with the girls. So that's my second thing. Don't talk too much. Don't run too much without a ball. Be playing basketball. And the third thing I want to talk about is every exercise should have an idea behind it. So it's not like, oh, we have to do a passing exercise today. It's time to do a passing exercise. Let's do a passing exercise. Like my passing exercise is always one that I want to see back in the game in some sort of way. And it's always combined. I always combine skills in one drill because I have limited gym time. So when I do a certain pass, let's say I want to practice a one-handed pass from the dribble, I also implement some kind of cut, some kind of layup, some kind of ball handling before. So I use my time to do 3 to 4 skills in one exercise to use my time as well as I can.
Great. I love the philosophy of always having a ball in your hand. And I think a lot of coaches have really been developing that and really been using that more, is that when some of the gyms I go to, you'll always see like players, they're dribbling or they're doing something with a ball in their hand, even if they're in a line, they're still dribbling or doing something. And I think that is really important because, like you said, sometimes space, time, we never have enough time as coaches, it feels like. So to make sure that we are using every second the best we can, I think that's super important.
Totally
Absolutely.
agree.
So, Coach, I want to thank you again for joining us. I think that this was really insightful, especially for coaches who might not know a lot about what goes on at the national level and what's expected at the national level. So, I want to thank you for coming here to talk and bring your insight, and good luck going forward with coaching, with playing, with teaching. Good luck with everything. Coach Lisa, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you once again. And thank you for all of you who listened. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.